They don't tell you this, but feeling stuck isn't about lack of talent or opportunity. It's about repetition. You wake up, do the same things, think the same thoughts, make the same excuses, and then wonder why nothing changes. The truth is uncomfortable, but it's simple. If you don't change what you do daily, your life cannot change yearly. You're not stuck because life is unfair. You're stuck because familiarity feels safer than growth. You choose what's known over what's possible, and every day you delay, that stuck feeling becomes your normal, until one day you stop questioning it and start accepting it. But here's the part most people avoid admitting. Being stuck is comfortable. It hurts, but it's familiar. You know how to survive here. You know what to expect. You know how to complain about it without actually risking anything. Growth, on the other hand, demands discomfort. It demands uncertainty. And uncertainty scares people more than unhappiness ever could. So you stay. You stay in routines that drain you. You stay in habits you've outgrown. You stay in a version of yourself you no longer respect. Not because you want to, but because leaving would require effort, courage, and responsibility. And responsibility is heavy. Because the moment you admit that change is possible, you also admit that staying the same is a choice. And that's a hard truth to sit with. It's easier to blame time, easier to blame circumstances, easier to say one day instead of asking yourself why that day never comes. But listen closely. Nothing changes until something changes. And something doesn't change because you thought about it longer. It changes when you act differently, even in a small way, especially in a small way. Being stuck isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a signal that your current habits no longer match the future you want, a signal that your comfort zone has become a cage, a signal that the life you're meant to live requires a version of you haven't fully stepped into yet. And that can feel overwhelming because you don't know where to start. You look at the gap between who you are and who you want to be, and it feels massive. So instead of moving, you freeze. You wait for clarity. You wait for motivation. You wait for confidence. But clarity comes after action, not before it. Confidence is built through movement, not thinking. And motivation follows momentum, not the other way around. The people who break free aren't special. They're not fearless. They don't have it all figured out. They just stopped negotiating with the version of themselves that wanted to stay comfortable. They made one decision that said, I can't keep living like this. One walk instead of staying in bed. One honest hour of work instead of procrastinating. One uncomfortable conversation. One habit changed. One excuse removed. That's how stuck begins to loosen its grip. And at first, it won't feel dramatic. No fireworks, no instant transformation, just resistance. Inner arguments, that voice that says, this won't matter anyway. But that voice is lying, because every small shift compounds. Every day you show up differently, you send a message to yourself that you're serious. Stuck doesn't disappear overnight. It fades when you stop feeding it, when you stop repeating the same days and expecting different outcomes. When you decide that discomfort is no longer something to avoid, but something to walk through. You don't need a new life. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need permission. You need a new standard. A standard that says, I don't abandon myself anymore. A standard that says, I do the hard thing, even when no one sees it. Because the moment you move, even slightly, you're no longer stuck. You're in motion, and motion changes everything. So if this feels uncomfortably familiar, that's not a coincidence. It means you're aware now, and awareness is the beginning of responsibility. Responsibility is the beginning of freedom. Comment, I'm moving, if today is the day you stop repeating the same cycle and start choosing differently.